Welcome to the annual State of the City. It's a delightful day here in Carpinteria, and especially here at the picturesque campus of Bega North America in Carpinteria. Hello, I'm Joyce Donaldson, the Chief Operating Officer and Carpinteria Liaison of the newly merged Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, from Goleta to Carpinteria. Each year, we celebrate our amazing Carpinteria community, and this year, our State of the City looks a little bit different. The information presented by our local leaders today is more vital than ever because of the pandemic to inform our business and community members on significant information about our community and government, and to provide a comprehensive update on the ever-changing business landscape. We miss your smiling faces, and we hope to resume this series next year live in person. Our annual State of the City was previously scheduled for April 3rd. However, this year we have had to pivot to a virtual presentation due to the limit on gatherings and social distancing mandates. It's been a challenging 6 months with the pandemic. However, the new Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber, from Goleta to Carpinteria, is proud to be the leading business support organization, providing timely, relevant, and trustworthy information from our leadership teams. Carpinteria enjoys unique benefits of being a cherished coastal community with a vibrant, walkable downtown, along with our growing tech hub. Innovative businesses are providing meaningful jobs, although this year it has been a bit more challenging. The Chamber works together with the City of Carpinteria to enhance the business community, and I look forward to hearing from our local and regional guest speakers today. Many thanks to the City of Carpinteria, Mayor Wade Nomura, our City Manager, Dave Durflinger, and Peter Rupert, Professor of Economics at UC Santa Barbara and the Director of the Economic Forecast Project. The Chamber traditionally provides a variety of informational forums, such as the annual State of the City, and this production would not be possible without the support of our generous sponsors. We are extremely thankful for the continued and growing support for our business community from Goleta to Carpinteria. A heartfelt thanks to all of our generous sponsors that have made this production possible today. Many thanks to Cox Communications, our title sponsors, and our gold sponsors, Agilent Technologies, Chevron, City of Carpinteria, E.J. Harrison & Sons, Grant Cox Enterprises, Inc., Greenleaf Landscapes and Tar Pits Gardening and Landscapes, Latitude 34 Technologies, LinkedIn, Meister & Nunes PC, Montecito Bank and Trust, Procore, SoCal Gas, Southern California Edison, and UCLA Health. Thank you. Also, many thanks to Bega North America for hosting our State of the City today at this beautiful campus. Bega is the source for a broad range of quality lighting products designed for both interior and exterior commercial and residential architecturally sensitive projects. Don Kinderdick is the president of Bega North America, and he began his career here in 2000 as Vice President Marketing and Product Development, and he quickly assumed the responsibility for all day-to-day operations and was named the company's president and the board of directors chairman in 2004. Don lives in Santa Barbara with his beautiful family, and it is now my pleasure to introduce Don Kinderdick.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Joyce. Bega North America is excited to host the 2020 Carpinteria State of the City at our beautiful campus in the city of Carpinteria. It is a pleasure to host Mayor Wade Nomura, City Manager Dave Durflinger, economist Peter Rupert, and the leadership from the Chamber of Commerce. As Bega internationally celebrates its 75th anniversary, Bega North America has been manufacturing architectural lighting solutions in Carpinteria for more than 30 years. We employ 160 plus here at our 9-acre site and are proud to have provided lighting solutions for local architectural gems such as the Getty Center and the Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles. Bega also is the campus standard at Amgem in Thousand Oaks, and most importantly, the standard for Linden Avenue here in Carpinteria, the City Hall, and most recently, the pathways and bridges for the latest Highway 101 lane widening project. Carpinteria is an ideal small beach town and with a thriving business community that we are honored to be a part of. Bega and our employees have partnered with local businesses and charities for years, but our efforts have taken on even greater importance during the recent pandemic and social unrest. One of our core values is family, and while this applies to our Bega family, it also applies to the communities that we work and live in. So in this great time of need, we ask all to support your local businesses and charities. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this informative event each year, and we are pleased we can share our campus for today's events. Thank you, and now I would like to turn it over to Kristen Miller.
Hello, I'm Kristen Miller, President and CEO of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce. I'm delighted to get to help present this historic event, the first State of the City presentation by our newly merged Regional Chamber of Commerce. For the past 18 years, I served as the CEO of the Goleta Chamber of Commerce. And like most chambers in the nation, we presented a State of the City very similar to Carpinteria, highlighting the partnership between business and government, tax revenue and city services, pro-business legislation, community enhancements and improvements, and the vital connection between every small business in our community to our city and community's quality of life. Earlier this year, before, during, and after the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and resulting economic disaster, the three chambers of commerce on the South Coast came together and united our boards to create a 50-member governing body, our professional teams to make a 10-member staff, and 1,100 members to create a large and powerful organization to amplify the voice of business, represent business to government, create new economic development initiatives, communicate relentlessly, and promote the need for economic recovery during this time of crisis. Our organization is new, but our histories are deep. By working together, we can bring a new level of connectedness, vitality, and strength to our local economy, jobs, and our communities. We can promote the region more cohesively and present a stronger message of welcome to the much-needed visitors who fuel our economy and strengthen our businesses. From Goleta to Carpinteria, we can help visitors stay longer, spend more, with a coordinated system of visitor centers, including one we propose for Carpinteria. Carpinteria is the first in our series of State of the City presentations and one of the many new programs of the newly merged chamber that we'll be working on. We have big plans for uniting our members, our visitor services program, and our high-tech industry leaders with the larger region to create even more prosperity for businesses and residents alike. As you know, we couldn't do any of this great chamber work without the support of our sponsors. We're extremely thankful for the continued and growing support from our business community. I'm going to start today by thanking and introducing our presenting sponsor, Kirsten McLaughlin from Cox Communications, to share a few words with you.
Thank you, Kristen. And a huge thank you to the entire team at our newly merged Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber for your continued hard work on behalf of our local businesses. While this year is certainly different than normal, we're thrilled to be the title sponsor for this year's Carpinteria State of the City. And I'm so happy to be here today with the Chamber team, Mayor Nomura, City Manager Durflinger, and Professor Rupert. Here at Cox Communications, we know our customers are more reliant on us than ever, with so much of our work, school, and personal lives happening virtually. And we don't take that responsibility lightly. We have invested $15 billion in our infrastructure across the country over the last 10 years, and are investing another $10 billion over the next 5 years to enhance our network and enable future technologies. Here locally, we saw roughly a year and a half's worth of growth in our network usage almost overnight following the governor's stay-at-home order, and continue to see usage grow as our students headed back to school this fall. With so many people working and learning from home, we accelerated local network projects to meet our customers' demands now. Additionally, we're in the middle of a huge renovation project at our campus in Goleta. The cornerstone of this project is a brand new critical facility, the building that holds all the back-end equipment and technology that powers our services throughout the area, or as I like to call it, the brains of the operation. When the new critical facility is complete and online next year, it will power the smart homes, businesses, and communities of today and the future. With school back in session, we've been working hand in hand with Carpinteria Unified, Partners in Education, and all of our local school districts to bridge the digital divide and get students connected through our Connect to Compete program. And we continue to provide education and COVID relief grants to local nonprofits throughout the area. Cox is so proud to be a part of this amazing Carpinteria community. Thank you for your commitment to our community in these unprecedented times, and enjoy today's State of the City. And with that, I'll bring Joyce back up.
Thank you so much, Kirsten, and thank you to Cox Communications. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the Carpinteria Mayor, Wade Nomura. Wade?
Thank you, Joyce, and thank you everybody for attending this special event. Kind of unusual in this time of COVID that we would be virtual, but something we deal with. My name is Wade Nomura. I've been a resident of Carpinteria since 1977. I'm born and raised in Santa Barbara, and the reason I'm here in Carpinteria, I was attracted to it. This was one area where I wanted to be, where I wanted to live, and where I wanted to bring up my family. And I've spent a lot of time actually working with the city. I've been working with the city for over 25 years now. I spent 17 years on the Architectural Review Board before joining City Council. I'm currently serving as the mayor. Some of the future priorities that we've discussed within the city are strengthening our community, protecting our environment, retaining that small town feel that we have that becomes so Carpinteria, and advancing our youth. Some of the challenges we faced over the last few years included the Thomas Fire and subsequent debris flows that we had to endure and still recovering from that. COVID-19 pandemic, one of our greatest impacts that we see in recent history, actually possibly in history itself. The economic recovery that's going to be occurring because of this, and also social equity brought about with awareness due to racial violence. I first want to thank and acknowledge the City Council members that I'm working with right now. These are people that are dedicated, outstanding, and without them, this city would not be even close to what it is today. Fred Shaw, Roy Lee, Greg Carty, and Al Clark. They've been a pleasure to work with. I've enjoyed working with them all the time, and rest assured you are in good hands with this council. Some of the things that we've done locally, local policies, issues, and accomplishments. First of all was recently was the transition of the Carpinteria Library, which we did not know if it was going to survive in the state it was in before, to now being brought forward thanks to the library committee, now being moved into the city of Carpinteria itself, being created into Carpinteria and possibly with Montecito. So we are in good hands. That will now be able to be something that we're looking at for future instead of something that we were faced with terminating. Racial equity and social justice, again, because of the violent times and the subsequent issues that we had with the tragic passing of George Floyd, has brought awareness to what we as a city need to do. One thing we're looking at now is we've created two committees. The first committee will be a committee that is looking at policies and procedures that we could then put in place. The second committee, again, working with the city, will be a blue ribbon committee. This committee will be comprised of not only 2 city council members, but also with the community itself. So we will be recruiting people within the community to give us good feedback on things that we have to look at to ensure that we have sound equity within our community. Now, the difference between equality and equity, equality is treating everybody the same. Equity is something where you actually balance it with fairness also, taking a look at that. We had a recent report by the Sheriff's Department saying that we had a reduction in crime, unprecedented numbers, lowest it's ever been. And because of that, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking that pride within your community. We are looking now at also the affordability of housing. One of the challenges that we have, we are a 2.5 square mile footprint within our city, and we have to make sure that we are able to fulfill not only the state mandates, but also what we want to do to keep those people within this community, the viable people, the great people that we have, staying in Carpinteria. One of the things that we've done, recently passed by the state, was a guarantee on rent control for the mobile home parks. This was worked in conjunction with and will now fit within the City Mobile Home Rent Board and the City Council itself. So this is inclusive of all of the mobile home parks. And so now we are looking at keeping those affordable and lively, something that we were concerned about previously. City Council also has passed recent legislation now protecting more housing by reducing the potential for vacation rentals, short-term rentals for tourism, to become now more affordable housing for local community. This protecting of rentals included also the changing or a new concept form of condominium conversions. Along with that, we are looking at second dwelling units and items like that, that within each of the communities, each of the neighborhoods, we will be able to then implement new procedures to put in place additional housing. And this is one of the things that we have always faced. The challenge has been, how do we keep the good Carpinterians here? I believe this is going to be one way we could do it, and I'm very proud of what the council has done to move that forward. Transportation, now through Measure X, and thank you very much for the those of you voted and made passage of Measure X. The availability of funds we have, over $1 million currently is being spent into infrastructure within the transportation area. You'll see streets, roadways, bikeways, and sidewalks all becoming part of the changeover and improvements within the city itself. The freeway project, not only do we add the HOV lanes, but we also are looking at and have been able to implement connecting routes between Linden and Casitas Pass, along with bike paths, sidewalks in that area. We have also developed and are working through a destination bike path. This bike path will connect Padero Lane all the way down to the Rincon. So we will have a continuous bike path that will go through our entire corridor. This will now create hundreds of miles of bike paths and make this a world destination spot. I want to jump into pandemic next, because this is one of the areas that we never anticipated, but became our greatest challenge. We've created two committees to try and offset some of the impacts that we've had. The first one is communications, realizing that our community needed to work closely together and make sure that everybody was brought up to speed, including what we had to do through the health orders of the federal, state, county, and local jurisdictions. So we're working with this. One of the gentlemen most responsible for a lot of shouldering this effort has been the Director of Emergency Services, Dave Durflinger. So thank you very much, Dave, for all that you're doing. City staff and Sheriff's Department also worked in conjunction with this. So not a single person that's in public right now has been impacted or has worked so hard to do that. Signage is out there. We had a recent Mask Up Carp where we brought more awareness. This was able to, through chalk art, bring people into the city in more awareness of that one and made it fun. The second committee was on economic recovery. Realizing that when I first heard the isolation orders, our greatest challenge was going to be to face how we are going to recover from this economy. It's going to be tough, and I believe this is going to be our #1 priority now and into the future. The city put together a small business restart program. It's a grant program of $135,000, and then it was also matched with another $30,000 from the Santa Barbara Foundation to help start up and kickstart some of the businesses that were suffering most. The $1,000 grant was given to those companies and businesses that showed the need and were willing to not only apply, but make sure that they stay within Carpinteria and stay viable. We expedited the process of special permits, allowing businesses to now encroach into the public right-of-way, another one that we felt important and imperative as part of our efforts in moving this forward. We also had community reach out. Communities such as CARP 93013, which is a foundation that Rotary put together to help pay for a lot of the recovery rates and help those people that were less fortunate, that were displaced or laid off because of the situation of being isolated. Rotary clubs and a number of other nonprofits and organizations jumped in to help out. So we saw a lot of volunteer help within this community. One of the greatest we've seen. Of all the communities, if you look up and down the state, nobody is stronger in that volunteer effort than Carpinteria. Carpinteria remains a proud and close community. Volunteering is their way of life. Citizens that have things that they want to say. Carpinteria, if you look at it, one voice will be heard. That's amazing. That's something that we could take pride in. One voice can be heard. I am proud to be a Carpinterian and honored to serve as your mayor. Next up, we have our city manager, Dave Durflinger. The city works very closely with city staff. We are fortunate to have such an outstanding staff, in large part thanks to our city manager, Dave Durflinger. So Dave, come on up. We'd love to hear from you. And again, outstanding job in everything you're doing.
Thank you, Mayor Nomura. I appreciate the kind words. It's a pleasure to be here at Bega, USA. I'm Dave Durflinger, City Manager for the City of Carpinteria, and I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce also and all the sponsors for the State of the City event, and especially Bega that's hosting us here today. I'm going to talk about today the city organization, important new work that we're undertaking, pandemic changes, and some of those that are expected to be permanent, and a high-level financial review of the city organization. It's been half a year now, believe it or not, under emergency declaration here at the city, the county, and the state of California and our nation due to the COVID pandemic. Our objective, of course, here is to keep everyone safe in Santa Barbara County, including Carpinteria. Our initial response to any emergency is to open an emergency operations center and to convert our organization to an emergency services agency, and we did that of course, in the early days of the pandemic, dating back to March. But as it drew on, we knew that this was going to be a long-term situation. And so parallel with our emergency response, we, of course, had to run day-to-day operations of the city. So it's really been an unprecedented situation, an unprecedented challenge for local government organizations across the nation to both run as emergency service agencies, meeting the needs of the pandemic and response and recovery, while also taking care of day-to-day operations. And I want to thank folks that have helped us do that. Of course, all the city staff, we have 36 full-time employees, our law enforcement partners at the Sheriff's Department, our legal team at Brownstein, and our communications team at Two Trumpets and Mima Adello in our general government office. Done a fantastic job. County of Santa Barbara Public Health Department and Emergency Management doing a fantastic job supporting us at the local level and keeping us safe here in the county and up to date with the latest information. Our city council leadership, who have continued to be creative, finding ways to assist constituents and the business community, being flexible and patient in this work. And residents and business owners and operators who, despite challenges, continue to cooperate and be partners in the response to help us keep the community safe. The strength of our Carpinteria community working together is surely benefiting all of our health and safety during this pandemic. In Carpinteria, we have 5 departments in the city organization: the Public Works Department, the Parks, Public Facilities and Recreation Department, the Community Development Department, which includes planning, the Administrative Services Department that houses our finance and IT services, and a General Government Department that includes the City Manager's Office and oversight of contracts for law enforcement services and legal services, among others. And as I mentioned before, there's 36 full-time employees at the city. Many are now working remotely due to the pandemic. We platoon back and forth between City Hall and homework. And City Hall remains closed to in-person visits, but we do, of course, allow telephone and other kinds of access, email access in order to do day-to-day business. I want to talk a little bit more about the dual roles that we've been taking on. In the Public Works Department, in response to the emergency, we've done food delivery support in terms of traffic control and parking and beach restriction enforcement and setting up traffic barriers and parking closures in order to keep people separated and reduce density of folks coming to the beach areas. That's a role of the Public Works Department. And in the meantime, day-to-day operations have continued with increased maintenance, keeping up with deferred maintenance and capital projects. Our team in the Public Works Department has just done a fantastic job. In the Parks, Public Facilities, and Recreation Department, there's been a need for increased facilities cleaning, restrooms, and beach management to keep people separated and managed. Meanwhile, they've gone through a full reorganization. Parks and Facilities Maintenance Team is being established, and they're planning for several new parks: the Rincon Bluffs Open Space Reserve, a skate park, and a dog park, all being in the planning stage. So they're busy folks in our Parks Department. In community development, they've taken the lead on getting information out to business, how to comply with reopening guidelines, and how to assist businesses in reopening, meanwhile keeping the permits moving through our development review process via remote work and remote meetings. A very challenging situation. They're doing a great job. In administrative services, our finance division has supported the response and transition needs through purchasing supplies, assisting with the Business Restart Grant Program and community support, getting out in short order over $200,000 in $1,000 grants and $20,000 grants to our community service agency, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., the Children's Project, as well as the small local businesses. Important work. And in general government, meanwhile, they've launched a new financial software platform while they were doing that and prepared the budget to be adopted on time this year. So appreciate their work. In general government, our day-to-day operations have continued with continuity of government, while our law enforcement partners have ramped up bike and beach patrol in an education mode to help folks make sure visitors were aware of mandates like wearing masks, and also have been involved in enhanced communications out to the public. So lots of dual work going on in those roles. Also for our organization, as the mayor indicated, we've got new roles and responsibilities that are coming with new programs. We're going to be operating a municipal library. We'll be working with the County of Santa Barbara and the City of Santa Barbara to transition to city oversight of the library. Climate change and sustainability policies and programs are being developed and implemented to address sea level rise and sustainable energy programs. And of course, racial equity and social justice program commitments have been made and are being developed. These initiatives will create new demands on the organization, reshape and transform the city organization over time. There's been a lot of talk in the news about aspects of the pandemic and the response to the pandemic that may become permanent, the new normal. And that's true in local government too. Lots of talk in local government about what may become the new norm. We're currently holding virtual meetings, of course, on platforms like this one, and Zoom is what we use. I think when we come out of this, hybrid meetings where people are able to attend in person as well as participate virtually through Zoom or other platforms will become a part of the mix. Also, we're planning a virtual open house. We did extensive remodeling at City Hall. We haven't been able to invite the public in yet, so we're going to hold a virtual open house that's being planned for later this year. City Services 101 webinars are also being planned where through these virtual platforms, we'll be able to invite people to join and discuss with departments the work they do, how they do it, and what they do for our community. We've also enhanced greatly our social media and website presence. We've completely redone our website. We have the hub that provides up-to-date information on the pandemic. The Current, the city's e-newsletter, has been revamped to become a weekly. Social media has been increased through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Nextdoor. And we really appreciate the work that Two Trumpets and Leah Boyd are doing in that respect. It's helping get information out to the community that's very important. We're also developing more interactive web pages for projects. So if folks want to comment on projects and see what's going on, we're going to have interactive web pages where they can take surveys, provide comments, and see other folks' comments on those projects. Another thing that we think is here to stay is the use of public spaces. We've been urging for years and allowed for years for businesses to use our sidewalks and open spaces as a part of their business, in particular in the downtown. And now that's really taken off with limits on businesses, in particular restaurants, to operate indoors. They're using the sidewalk, they're using the parking strip. And I think when the pandemic is over, we'll see some of that stay with parklets and other use of the downtown streets. And that's important. It helps add to a vibrant downtown district, and we want to see that. In terms of the financial review, I'll refer to some slides now, starting with our all funds budget. This is a slide that shows the sources of funds at just over 19 million. That's down about 10% from last year's overall all funds sources of funds, which was about 21.5 million. We have 19 separate funds, the largest being the general fund. You can see here that our major sources of revenue are the property tax at just over 4 million, sales tax, transient occupancy tax, and intergovernmental grants, which include things like the countywide half-cent sales tax and Measure A program for transportation projects, and other capital improvement grants. In terms of the use of funds on the next slide, we have capital projects at 4.9 million, just under 5 million. We have an aggressive capital improvement program. This also includes major maintenance and street maintenance activity. We're going to be undertaking a lot more pavement maintenance in the years to come to catch up on that work. We're a service agency, so a lot of our costs are in people. So you'll see the next two. Wages and benefits are about 5.2 million to put our employees out in the street and deliver the services. And then you see public safety at just over 4 million to put our public safety team out on the street. The next slide shows our general fund operational deficit for this past year and current fiscal year. You can see that the overall general fund budget has shrunk from just over 10 million to just over 9 million, about a 13% reduction that's related to the pandemic. We've responded to the lost revenue with a hiring freeze, pay freeze, and other cuts in order to try to live within our means, but we're also using reserves. This is a deficit spending budget. So there's an operational deficit, and we're using our rainy day fund as a part of the way to continue delivering services to the community. So in the middle of this table, you'll see the operational excess deficit there for last year and this. That includes the pandemic and some spending in the last year on the city remodel project. Most of that was covered by insurance payments. And then you'll see our economic uncertainty reserve towards the bottom of the chart. That's the rainy day fund that we're using this year. And these are temporary uses of these rainy day funds. We anticipate after 2 years that we're going to be able to balance the budget as our revenue sources start coming back. So looking at a little more detail in where we took the hit from the pandemic on revenue sources, major revenue trends including the transient occupancy tax. You can see the actual estimated for last year is a 20% drop down to 2 million, was 2.6 million the year prior. And then in our adopted budget for this year, we're also estimating at 1.9 million continued decline. And again, our expectation is that will recover over time. On the sales tax front, this is the state 1% sales tax. We're seeing a 10% drop in revenue in the prior year, and in the current year, that's our estimate for the budget. That's due to, of course, the stay-at-home order, which shut down restaurants and stopped one of our major revenue sources there, and also travel restrictions that resulted in a great reduction in gasoline sales, which in Carpinteria is one of our big sales tax bases. So we think that also will recover over time. It's already recovering as people are traveling again. The final slide I want to show you is our Measure X spending plan. In 2018, voters approved a 1.25% local sales tax measure to fund specific things that they saw as priorities. It brings in about $2.5 million annually. It's accounted for entirely separately, so it can be very transparent, and the voters can see that we're spending the money where they wished. The four major areas include law enforcement, emergency services that funds our community resource deputy, emergency response communications that we're using right now, maintenance activities including increased pavement maintenance and parks and facilities maintenance, capital improvement program with accessibility improvements and other projects important to the community. And finally, our community services support program, adding additional funding, including support of library services and community services support agencies. Again, those agencies like Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club, and the Carpinteria Children's Project really stepped up in the response to the pandemic with food delivery, childcare, and other important services. And the voters' approval of Measure X have allowed us to supplement our usual annual funding and support them in that work. Finally, in closing, I want to say with regard to the finances, the discipline and foresight of city councils over the past 30 years have put the city in good position to weather the financial storm brought on by the pandemic. The city has had to cut expenses and use its rainy day fund in response to pandemic-related financial impacts. However, we have confidence that we can continue to deliver the services, programs, and projects needed and desired by the Carpinteria community. Thank you very much, and I'd like to now introduce and welcome Dr. Peter Rupert.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate the opportunity to present today. Obviously, this is a very transformative time for all of us. It's caused lots of turmoil, confusion. It's very difficult. In fact, today, it took me about 20 minutes to find my long pants because of Zoom. I haven't just wear shorts. Anyway, there is lots of uncertainty out there still. We've noticed that not only in the economic realm, but in the medical realm as well. It's very difficult for us to understand where we exactly are in terms of the health, in terms of the economy. And it's great to hear the mayor talk a little bit about inequality, because I think one of the things that's really happened during the pandemic has been to hurt those people who can least afford it. And I think this is where we really need to step up. Those individuals who have lost their job, who are in retail, leisure and hospitality, waiters, waitresses, lower wage jobs. They're very difficult they're having a very difficult time staying in their apartments, making a living. And this is one of the things that has been transformative that we have to step up on. Is the virus under control? We don't really know. We're hoping for a vaccine, obviously. Maybe by the end of the year, the testing's going pretty well. Is the economy under control? Well, the Federal Reserve met yesterday, and they basically said they're going to keep interest rates down at around zero for another couple of years. That tells me that there's uncertainty out there, and they're certainly worried. So obviously, some places have been hit harder than others, and this transformation that we're seeing, some of it we've been witnessing in the past. Things like the retail sector. We know that the retail sector has been up and down over the last few years, maybe trending a little bit down. What just happened is something that we've never ever seen before. Even though we thought we've seen it all after the Great Recession, then the pandemic hits. So I have some slides which will be up on the presentation, and those graphically show basically how big these numbers are. And it's fascinating as an economist to really understand where we're going to go from here. So when you see something like monthly employment to fall by over 20 million workers in the United States in 1 month, it's just astonishing. The most we've ever seen, even during the Great Recession, was about a couple 100,000, 300,000. We saw 20 million people lose their job in just 1 month. We've started to come back a little bit, and people ask me, are we going to have a V-shaped recovery? I don't know what they're asking. I mean, we're already past a V. It's been 8 months. A V-shaped recovery to me would be a few months. The standard recovery, the standard recession in economics typically lasts about 7 months, 8 months. We're already there. So it's not like this has snapped back faster than everybody thought. Not only is it bad for some industries, basically almost every industry got hurt badly during this pandemic. So take a look at, for example, in Santa Barbara County. If we compare Santa Barbara County's employment this July compared to a year ago, there's not one sector that's done well. In fact, this July, leisure hospitality, for example, it's still down over 30%, roughly 30% of where it was just a year ago. Those are the people who have lost their jobs. Leisure and hospitality, it's not the only one. Retail, again, if you look at most sectors, there's not a positive increase since July of last year compared to this July. In retail employment, for example, if you look at Santa Barbara County, something like 6,000 people lost their job alone in Santa Barbara County. We've never seen this number of people unemployed before in Santa Barbara County. And how we're dealing with it, again, is very important. And I have to congratulate the mayor, the council, Dave, for allowing businesses to do whatever they can to get back, to get people's jobs back so they can feed their families and maintain their rents. What I mean by that is I was fortunate enough to be on the mayor's task force for reopening in Santa Barbara, and the discussions were quite amazing, stuff I've never seen before at a council, and the mayor probably is witness to this as well here in Carpinteria. The willingness of the council members, the mayor, and businesses to get together and make good decisions, along with the chambers of commerce, it's just astounding to me. In just a few weeks, things like State Street got closed. We have parklets. We allow people to be out in the streets dining. Without doing that, those businesses would have closed. There's just no doubt about it. Leisure and hospitality, again, leisure and hospitality lost about 50% of its employment in Santa Barbara. And again, these are people who are at risk of many other things. So when we talk about the health concerns, I know what people say. Right now, when I talk to you about health, you think to yourself, how many cases are there out there? How many deaths from COVID? I want people to think about health a little more generally than that. And I've been talking to public health, and basically what we're seeing now are rises in things that are structurally very bad for our society. When people are unemployed for a very, very long time, especially lots of people, things like opioid addiction increases, alcoholism, child abuse, all these things. And I think it's important for policymakers to reach out and understand more than just COVID cases, to think about what's happening to all of our community members. And so if you look just in Carpinteria, for example, if you go back in April basically through November of last year, employment in Carpinteria was around 7,100. This April and May, it fell to 6,100. That's 1,000 people losing their job in Carpinteria alone. I can tell you that those numbers are numbers, again, we haven't seen before and we don't know how to deal with. If we look at unemployed persons in Carpinteria, typically there's about 200 people who are unemployed in Carpinteria. In just a couple months, it rose 4 times to 800 people. We're coming back a little bit. It's about 600 right now in Carpinteria. Again, is this a V-shaped recession? No, it's still going to be slow, and we're going to have to work at it for a long time. So where do people go when they lose their job? Most of those people had to go to unemployment, of course. We did have a very good program that the government initiated, paying people another $600 a week while they were unemployed. Obviously, if the government shuts businesses down and people's occupations down, they should be responsible to pay for some of that. Some of the people just left the labor force. Will they come back? Will they come back in a year? Will they come back in 6 months? Very hard to know. And I think right now we're getting to the end of most of the programs that were helping people. So while we're not out of the woods, maybe the trees have thinned a little bit, but we still have a long, long way to go. The declines certainly haven't been evenly distributed. So if you look at weekly initial claims, again, when you see these graphs, it's kind of just, mind-blowing. When you see people claim initial unemployment benefits, numbers in the United States like 1.6 million people in 1 week applied for unemployment insurance. That means it overburdened our state unemployment insurance system because the state is who runs these unemployment insurance schemes. So what basically had to happen was the California had to borrow from the state, the federal government. Lately, we've seen initial claims fall a little bit. I want people to be very aware, and this is a very nerdy thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Most of the data that you see, whether you know it or not, and if you look at the official data, it typically says things like not seasonally adjusted or seasonally adjusted. When the department seasonally, the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the Bureau of Economic Analysis seasonally adjust, that's kind of during normal times. What does that mean? It means like during Christmas, we know employment goes up. So what you want to do is say, okay, we know it usually goes up by so much. How much did it go up this Christmas? That's what seasonal adjustment does. However, today, these aren't normal times. And so I have a little bit of a cause, which I'm trying to get people to look at not seasonally adjusted data. Why? The seasonal adjustment factors aren't telling the right story. Now, A little bit of evidence about this. The Bureau of Labor Statistics just 3 weeks ago said, guess what? The seasonal adjusted data isn't telling the right story. We have to change it. So rather than tell people to use not seasonally adjusted data, what they did was they changed the seasonal adjustment factors. And again, a nerdy thing to say, they went from a multiplicative factor to additive. But it's still, if you think about it, this is not the standard September, and by any means. And so applying any seasonal factor to what this September should look like is not going to be giving you the right statistic. So when you look at things like weekly initial claims, which fell just today, actually, not seasonally adjusted, it's been pretty flat over the last month or so. It came down very fast initially. It got cut in half, but since then it's just been sort of sitting there. Again, what are weekly initial claims? It's people who lose their jobs and apply for unemployment insurance in that week. By the way, not everybody who applies gets it. The people who do get it, they're continued on unemployment. They're called insured unemployment. That number fell by the most it's ever fallen today. It fell by about 1 million people are now not on continued claims. That's a big number. Again, historically, it never falls by much. So this is certainly astounding features. So one thing that we have to realize is not every sector is doing badly. Some sectors are doing great. In fact, residential real estate doesn't even blink an eye at the pandemic, it turns out. You can't notice the pandemic in the real estate data. For example, if you look at sales, house prices, existing sales that came out today, housing starts that came out today, you don't notice it. You do notice the Great Recession, and you notice it in a big way. What's the reason for that? Well, partly is because I think people today are a little safer than they were in 2008 and 2009. What do I mean by safer? Less leveraged. There's better equity in terms of businesses, households, etc. They're better able to withstand things that happen like losing their job. So finally, I just want to say, I think that what we need to do in the future is we have to be better prepared. We need to be better prepared for pandemics. This is not the first pandemic. We had a worldwide pandemic in 1968 to 1970 that killed over 100,000 Americans. We had a pandemic in 1958 and 59 that killed 116,000 Americans. By the way, during that time, there was no shutdown of any form. No business, the Fed didn't do anything, and we lost 100,000 people in the United States. In 2005, President Bush gave an hour-long talk to the National Institute of Health, saying that the next big crisis for the United States is a pandemic. That was in 2005, and he set up something called the influenza.gov or org, I can't remember. President Obama, before he left office, said the next big issue we have to deal with is a pandemic. In September of 2019, President Trump's Council of Economic Advisors wrote about a 40-page report on what's going to happen if there's a pandemic, the losses that were going to be there. Yet, were we prepared? We were not. Are cities prepared when revenue's not coming in? Have a rainy day fund? All these things we have to think a little bit more about now as we try to recover. And by the way, we will recover. So I want to thank you very much for having me, and I'd like to bring Joyce back.
Thank you, Peter, for such an informative presentation. We always enjoy having you at our State of the City. So again, many thanks. I'd also like to thank the Mayor Wade Nomura, City Manager Dave Durflinger, and again, Peter, for speaking today. I'd also like to thank Cox Communications as our title sponsor and all of our sponsors that made this production happen today. I'd also like to give a shout out again to Don and Sean at Bega North America. We just have really enjoyed the campus. They've given us a beautiful tour, and it's great to see that manufacturing is still working in Carpinteria. They have about 170 employees, and they're still working strong, so thank you. I'd also like to just acknowledge our Dream Team staff at the new Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber, from Goleta to Carpinteria. They have been working relentlessly, and their hard work and dedication is to be commended. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.